Hi everyone, my name's Kelly. I'm a clinical scientist within cardiology and I work at Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Megan Subaya, and I'll let Megan introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm 14 years old and I'm interested in a career in science in the future.
So Megan and I are going to have a bit of a double act in interviewing each other in relation to women and girls working in science to celebrate the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So my first question for you, Megan, is there anyone in particular who has inspired you in your study of science?
When I was younger, I remember being taken to hospital in an ambulance, and that kind of interested me in science that way. And I remember the people that took me in were like very lovely and caring, and it's kind of like giving back.
Very good answer. Did you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I'll go. What was the reason you pursued a career in science, and what did you tell yourself in times of doubt about continuing?
So to be entirely honest, I actually started in journalism, but I very quickly decided at university that science was the way for me. And what I liked about it was that you could work with colleagues towards a common goal. I really liked the structure of science and the way that it's so systematic. I liked the equations and I liked the details of science, and I think that they really drew me in. And then working in science, I also had the opportunity to work clinically, and I think that just like you, that has an element of being able to help others. And so I think that, that's kind of for the greater good, and that's what I liked about clinical science. In terms of doubts, I think in any career path, there's probably often some doubts, not knowing whether you're studying the right thing or should you take that job opportunity. But I think the way that you kind of overcome that is by concentrating on all your achievements and then also looking at where you want to get to. And then I think that if you can really stay committed to that, all of those doubts tend to go away, and you don't, have those doubts hanging over your head for too much of the time. So my next question for you is, of all the things that you've learned in science, which one do you think will be the most useful as an adult, and why?
In school, I found the study of the human body interesting, and obviously it's important to take care of yourself physically and mentally, and learning about that is important in the future because you want to know how to take care of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the mental side is particularly important, isn't it?
Yeah, especially during these times.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, my next question for you. What was the most challenging moment of your career so far, and how did you overcome it?
So the most challenging part of my career is probably failure. And I think that I've failed lots and lots, and people fail all the time, both big and small. In terms of the big ones, I think that you really just need to concentrate on all of those big bosses, the bosses at Google and at Apple. They fail all the time, and they fail big. Sometimes they go bankrupt, but they keep on working, and then ultimately they succeed. Actually, let me show you this. This is something from my pin board. I think that just like life, career pathways aren't straightforward, and we don't always get directly to success. So I think that's really important to remember. So I'm told that you're interested in becoming a paramedic or studying paramedic science. What is it that interests you about that career pathway? And can we please convince you to come to cardiology?
At school, biology is kind of my strong point out of all the sciences, and I find it really interesting to learn about all of how the body works and stuff like that. And being a paramedic, like saving lives and making a difference, I feel like that experience is quite rewarding. And being a first responder in a crisis is also quite interesting.
And stressful. Do you think it'd be stressful?
Yeah, I think it would be stressful, but I think it would be enjoyable at the same time.
Yeah, maybe all the stresses would be cancelled out by how rewarding it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question for you, what are you looking forward to in the future of your career?
So I thought about this, and then I thought it's probably not fair for me to say retirement because we're trying to promote careers. I think what I'm looking forward to is probably growth and learning. I think that in science, with knowledge, we grow, and with change, we have the opportunity to really make developments. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the external factors, like people getting older, like new diseases popping up that have never occurred before, how that changes the role of what scientists do in the future. I think that that's what I'm looking forward to the most. As a consequence of COVID, I can imagine that school and also learning must be pretty different to what it was about a year ago. So how are you finding virtual learning? What about all of the science experiments? Are they still happening? And can you still get detentions or sanctions?
Obviously, the opportunities are limited and challenged because of restrictions to resources, but we get great teacher support, and they're always there to support us in what we're learning and homework and classwork. I would say in the first lockdown, obviously, we weren't doing lessons online, so that was kind of more restricted to what we're doing now, because now we can email our teachers about work, and we have our classmates as well, which has helped a lot. In terms of detentions, we still get consequences if we don't hand in homework, but yeah.
And how do you hand in all your homework?
We use Google Classroom, which is a really good app for a lot of schools, and it's just it's basically subjects kind of organized, and basically you just click a button and it turns in the work for you, so you do most of your work online.
Oh, very good. That's good. So you don't have to like write stuff down and take photos or anything like that?
For some subjects we do, for example, arts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's also not a problem.
Cool.
My next question for you, what is the most exciting part of your job?
Ooh. I think that there's a few different things. Well, one of the things that I really like about my job is that there's lots of different components to it. So some parts are very clinical, some parts are very sciencey. I really enjoy talking to patients. I think that sometimes, particularly when you're talking to the older generation, they tell some really good stories, and that's quite entertaining. I think across the board in the other aspects of my job, you know, we are always learning. Even yesterday, I was in an MDT, which is a multidisciplinary team meeting. So lots of different doctors, nurses, scientists, and we were all talking about a particular diagnosis that none of us in the room had ever seen before. And they were, you know, there were people there with 30 years experience. And so I think the exciting component there is that every day we're learning new things, which is really refreshing. So my next question for you is, what is the best invention you've seen recently, and what do you like about it?
I would say genuinely the internet, especially over the pandemic, because it allows people to keep contact and communicate for learning. And just a general thing as well. We use the internet almost every day. It's something that we rely on a lot. And yeah, it's just very useful daily.
Sometimes I think about, can you imagine if they charged us every time we sent an email, like they do for a phone call? That would be like crazy. It'd cost us so much money.
Okay, my next question for you. In your experience, is there a difference in opportunities between men and women in the industry?
Ooh, I'll have to answer this one carefully, I think. So I think that the NHS is actually pretty good at making sure that there's equality and diversity. So when it comes to men and women, they're pretty fair at giving job opportunities to the person who's best at the role, regardless if they're male or female. So on the whole, I think it's reasonably fair. But I was reading something interesting lately. It was related to drawing a comparison between doctors who sit exams, and it looked at men and women, and what that showed was when they're worry-free, you know, without partners or husbands and no children, actually women, the pass rate is approximately 90%. And for men, it's about 80%. So the women do quite well there. And then when they looked at later on in life, when people have husbands or wives and when they've got children, the pass rate for men was still around about 80%. But for women, that dropped down to 55%. So it just made me kind of think about women and how they may have extra commitments outside of work. And I wondered if this might play a role or have implications in relation to promotion opportunities for them in the future. So I think that's probably, you know, I wonder if it does have an impact. Yeah. This is a bit of a outside thinking question, but I thought that it might be interesting to know your perspective. So do you think that robots will ever rule the world?
I would say that technology is constantly developing, and especially today we're relying on AI devices for like Google, Siri, and Alexa, and Amazon and things. So it's possible that one day it could happen, I would say.
Yeah, maybe we're already halfway there.
Okay, my next question. Why is it important to encourage more women to pursue a career in science?
Well, I think it's important to encourage both men and women to have careers in science. But I think that traditionally there may have been a bit of a perception that women don't really do science or technology or engineering and those types of careers. I think that people nowadays, thankfully, are much more progressive thinking, and they've learned that actually women are just as bright as men, which is great. I think typically women are sometimes a little bit more self-doubting, so they don't believe in themselves as much, which is completely unjustified, and it may be by nature, or it may just be from, you know, centuries of societal influences. I'm not sure. But I think with that in mind, sometimes a little bit of extra encouragement for women can only be helpful. So my final question for you, Megan, is do you think there are any worldwide problems that scientists can help to solve? On which one of these problems would you focus first? And how can we help to fix the problem?
I would say today, the pandemic, because it's still affecting millions worldwide. And I think scientists are making really good progress with the vaccine and track and trace, which is really helping people. And obviously, we've got the vaccine to care homes and the elderly people and the most vulnerable. And we're protecting frontline workers, which is really good. But apart from COVID, I would say the biggest problem would be global warming, because it's a constant problem that's getting worse. And the increase of the temperature of the Earth is affecting wildlife and habitats and the rising sea levels, which I think that it will affect future generations much worse than now. And I would say the ways that we can help reverse global warming would be to reduce carbon dioxide and start using electrical energy more, and like reduce like cars and vehicles on the road, and planting more trees, because that can help remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Very, very important stuff. And I think that, that's where you guys can help to educate us, because when we were going through school, we didn't really appreciate the damage that we were doing to the environment. You guys are much more aware of that. And so, you can teach us about how we can make changes to improve things.
Okay, my last question for you. If you could go back, what advice would you give your 14-year-old self about your future in science?
I think don't underestimate yourself. I think, when we're just this one young individual, we think we can't do much, but really all of us have the potential to really contribute to positive changes in the world. I encourage you, or myself at 14, to think broadly and to listen openly and get lots of opinions. Also, don't be afraid to share your ideas. I think sometimes we can always be a bit shy and a bit underconfident, but I think that we should share our ideas, because often people have really great ideas, and if they don't share them, then these ideas don't get out. I think science really teaches so many different transferable skills, which means working in science, the opportunities are endless. So I'd say to myself at 14, work in science and keep on pushing the boundaries for science, but also for women in science. So for anybody who's been listening, I just wanted to say thank you very much to Megan for helping me with the interview today. I think we've got lots to learn from the younger generation as they kind of take on the reins of working in science in the future. So good luck, Megan, in the future. I hope that your career continues and that we see you working in science in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly, for the questions as well.